It appears that after decades of stagnant wages and eroding workers' rights, workers are fighting back. And it's awesome. So now, former Labor Secretary Robert Reich had observed on Wednesday that with employees in industries across the spectrum set to strike or now are currently on strike, the U.S. is actually closer than it has ever been in decades to experiencing something that is a general strike. Now, he writes in The Guardian, quote, "You might say workers have declared a national general strike until they get better pay and improved working conditions. No one calls it a general strike, but in its own disorganized way, it's related to the organized strikes breaking out across the land. Hollywood TV and film crews, John Deere workers, Alabama coal miners, Nabisco workers, Kellogg's workers, nurses in California, healthcare workers in Buffalo. In fact, of course, labor advocates are calling this show of union power and labor solidarity as Striketober. I love it. Oh, I love Striketober. So good. So good. In fact, look, there's a lot of different strikes going on right now. Of course, you've got John Deere, 10,000 workers officially on strike. And the Washington reports that the company offer included a raise of about 5 to 6%. Union officials said the proposed contract did not meet workers' retirement and wage goals. And so that offer was rejected. Good. In fact, Chris Larson, who's a longtime worker at the John Deere plant in Iowa, says the cards are in our favor right now. It's never been lined up this well for us. And Larson pointed out to the company's record profits, as well as the huge pay raise awarded Chief Executive John May. The labor shortage is in our favor too. Deere can't hire enough people with the package they're offering right now. Oh, I love to see this. I love to see this. Another employee told WQAD, an ABC affiliate in Moline, Illinois, says, "We aren't asking to be millionaires. We're asking for fair wages, a pension, and post-retirement health care. After 30 years or more of giving your body to a company moving 1,000-pound castings around or assembling tractors, it rips your body apart. It's not unreasonable to not want to have to worry in life of what if." Look, I got a personal story. I know, anecdote Andy over here. But no, look, my grandpa worked at a company doing ball bearings. He's had to have his hip and his shoulders replaced from the work that he did. He retired from there, got a pension. Very, very few people now have pensions anymore. So they've been taking those things away. And so, he's lucky, but even he says, don't go into factory work. It will rip you apart. It'll destroy your body. And he's absolutely right. And so for people to work in those industries and not get paid a fair wage, especially when you have the management and the CEO that is getting paid, gigantic earnings, and them not having health care, the workers, and having to accept contracts with very little health care, which, by the way, we could all solve that problem by doing Medicare for all, which unfortunately some unions are opposed, which is sad to see. Nonetheless, you have people that are just fighting for basic benefits, higher benefits that have been cut over the last 20, 30 years, and higher wages. They deserve these things. And now finally, they're fighting back. Finally. And so I want to go to the news coverage on here, because there actually is some coverage going on about these worker strikes. And this actually comes from Good Morning America, which actually did an excellent job talking about these strikes. Take a look.
In a wave of labor stoppages across the country, there is a new militant spirit in the American workforce. Workers want more, and they're willing to strike to get it. This morning, 10,000 workers at John Deere hit the picket lines in Iowa, Illinois, and Kansas. They argued that even as the agricultural equipment company's profits grew by 61% in recent years, and their CEO's salary grew by 160% during the pandemic, their pay has actually been cut.
We need to let them know that they can't continue to take our money and take our money and take our money.
Across the country, labor is on the march. In California and Oregon, 24,000 nurses and other healthcare workers at Kaiser Permanente voted to authorize a strike over pay and better working conditions. Meanwhile, union workers at Kellogg's cereal plants have been on strike for more than a week, angry about long hours, including 7-day work weeks.
Our number one priority is to get back to the negotiations table and reach a contract so our employees can get back to their jobs and their lives.
And soon, Hollywood may see a walkout. 60,000 film and TV crew members could walk off the job Monday over what they claim are unfair working conditions.
Our hours are really grueling, and we need not just rest between the workdays and over the weekend, but an actual meal break during the day.
And across the country, a record number of workers are quitting their jobs. 4.3 million Americans, or 2.9% of the workforce, left their jobs in August. Many are looking for better work conditions and pay, especially with inflation on the rise. Several forces are driving all of this. As the pandemic comes to an end, companies are seeing sky-high demand and very tight labor markets. They're having trouble filling jobs. Workers notice that top executives and bosses are getting paid, and so for the first time in a long, long time, workers have the upper hand.
Fuck yeah. Look, again, excellent reporting right there. But more importantly, look at all this. This is wonderful to see. Absolutely incredibly encouraging. So I want to go back to more words from Reich here. Now, he also wrote that we're frontline workers across the country putting their health at risk over the last 18 months by going back to work at companies that have raked in historic profits. Workers are reluctant to return or remain in their old jobs, mostly because they're burned out. And he said, years ago when I was Secretary of Labor, I kept meeting working people all over the country who had full-time work, but complained that their jobs paid too little and had too few benefits, or were unsafe, or required lengthy or unpredictable hours. And again, that was over 20 years ago. And we're still facing the same problems. Many of them said that their employers treated them badly, harassed them, and did not respect them, and of course that continues. And he said, since then, these complaints have only grown louder. According to polls, for many, the pandemic was the last straw. Workers are fed up, wiped out, done in, and run down. In the wake of so much hardship, illness, and death during the past year, they're not going to take it anymore. Now, he also added that corporate America wants to frame this as a labor shortage. Now, you're hearing that, of course, everywhere, right? Oh, it's a labor shortage, labor shortage, labor shortage. Not actually a labor shortage. Reich explains this as, what's really going on is more accurately described as a living wage shortage, a hazard pay shortage, a childcare shortage, a paid sick leave shortage, and a healthcare shortage. Unless these shortages are rectified, many Americans won't return to work anytime soon. So now, let me relate this, of course, to the Republican narrative as well. So now, you guys remember the conversation that they were having where it's like, oh, the unemployment benefits. It's the enhanced unemployment benefits. That's why we have a quote-unquote labor shortage. Oh, yes. It doesn't have anything to do with, low pay. I mean, of course, we're paying people more money to stay home, which makes sense during a pandemic, by the way. And so they're not going to go back to work unless we're not going to boost wages. That'd be insane. Our donors, our owner donors would get very, very mad. That's why we're just going to cut unemployment. And so they did that in many different states. And what happened? No change. You know why? Because it didn't have anything to do with the unemployment benefits. What it had to do was all of the stuff that was not only outlined in that video, but also what Reich was talking about. Workers are sick of being underpaid and not cared for by their companies, by their bosses. And so, one more thing too, by the way. There are people that are still trying to get jobs, obviously, right? Now, I've seen some anecdotal stories, and understand, take that if you will, of people that have been applying for jobs, and were denied. So, and even though that they're saying they can't find workers. Now, I think that's because corporations want to go back to what it was like pre-pandemic. where they could essentially crush us and, you know, pay us poor wages and treat us poorly, and we just lay down and accept it. Not anymore. Not going to happen. We're done with that. So now AFL-CIO President Liz Schuler told The Hill that the Striketober movement shows that with economic inequality getting worse and worse, unions, labor is the solution. And said, this is the capitalist system that has driven us to the brink. Unite Here, which represents 300,000 hospitality employees, also expressed solidarity with the workers taking part in Striketober and urged them to see themselves as in a position of power. Quote, it is clear that we are in a significant moment for union organizing. What we cannot do is lose this moment. The so-called labor shortage, which we really know is just a shortage of jobs that pay us enough to live on, is a powerful bit of leverage workers have over employers right now. You know what scares bosses? Sarah Nelson, president of the Association of Flight Attendants, added, worker solidarity. Striketober is terrifying the bosses. Yes, yes, and hell yes. All of this. So understand, like, I do have my differences with some unions, for example, the ones that fight against universal health care, Medicare for all. But that's not with the membership. It's with some of the leadership. But overall, unions are a net positive to this country. Labor needs to band together, and we need to support these workers. So what that means, of course, is that with all the people that are going on strike, it means that we should not buy their products until these strikes are resolved, until the workers actually get a fair contract. So that means don't buy the products, don't cross picket lines, and if you can, if you're able, try to set up mutual aid networks for some of the striking workers to help them support their families. The longer you can keep these going, the more favorable conditions that you're going to give to these workers when it comes to contract negotiations. You have to support these workers through either of those ways. All of them if you can. I get it. Because here's the thing. This also doesn't just affect union workers, right? So if you want better wages, if you want better benefits, you have to support these workers, because these labor moves, these things that the unions win trickle down to everybody else. And not only that, but if they win good contracts, it inspires others to band together, to fight for better contracts, or to fight to even create a union. That's why it's important. So worker solidarity, Striketober, we all need to get together. We all need to get together and fight for each other. We need to fight for each other and for labor everywhere. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.